When I started my career in documentary filmmaking, I admired those thriving in the industry. I was right where you are, dreaming big and scared of stumbling. Years later, I went from distributing my very first documentary to filming in over 35 countries. And now, this podcast is where we share skills, stories, and lessons with filmmakers, including those who won Oscars and Emmys, to help each other grow and create impactful documentaries. When you have a lot of chaos on the timeline, when you have a lot of chaos on your hard drive with a lot of hours of footage, doesn't mean that you don't have a good documentary. Also, how do you deal with directors? How do you bring their vision to reality in editing their films? I tried to ask these questions to Niels Pagh Andersen, which is the editor of The Act of Killing and The Look of Silence. If you're not familiar with these two documentaries, please go watch them because they are just stunning. Werner Herzog said that in the next 20 years, there will not be another documentary like that. He was referring specifically to The Look of Silence. Also, guys, if you would like to know how Niels boils down 1,200 hours of footage into 2 hours, well, I suggest you go on the howwefilm.com website. There's a sections exclusive content, and you can register. It's for free. You can go and watch basically that video where he explained all of that. At the same time, if you have specific questions towards your documentary, towards your production, towards your editing, towards whatever it is that regards documentary production, well, at the bottom of the homepage, there's a section where you can submit me any questions. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to produce a video with the answer. I'll do my best, of course. I don't know everything, but I'll do my best to answer your question in a specific video that then I will post on the documentary questions section in YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, you name it. I hope you enjoy this episode, guys, and yeah, I love you, and I hope that this will serve you well as you are trying to make your documentary. Now, to give you an idea of what I'm going through after reading the book, to me, the best music that it's so deep, it's just another level, is Pink Floyd. Personally, when I listen to Pink Floyd, is the only music where each instrument is speaking to me. I don't know what it's saying, but it's speaking to a deeper part of me that it's hard to reach at a conscious level, almost, right? And sometimes you hear the guitar is telling you a story. It's really telling you a story. It's taking you somewhere with a specific scenario, with a specific context, all that is clear, right, to me. Now, when I try to bring that into my filmmaking, it's so scary. One thing is to experience what somebody else has created. One thing is to actually go and invest. We're talking about, investing 3 years in, to film this thing, somewhere, and invest money and invest all of that. It is scary. Yet it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to embark on that journey of discovery, and I think even to be at peace with the fast pace that we're living, where it's all about accomplishing things, and and then being successful, and all of that puts so much pressure onto you that you actually don't give yourself the chance to actually go and explore. Now, I understand there are dynamics of the industry that you kind of have to jiggle around. You have to be able to do that. But at the same time, if I look myself in 40, 50 years, in the last few days when my life is going to be over and I want to look back, in a way that I'm like, well, I given myself the chance to actually really explore and not just be at the service of whatever industry or whatever situation was coming around me, right? Yes, it is scary. It is very scary.
But and what is so interesting, I have called my book Order and Chaos. But it is not, and of course, on the first level, it is that in documentary film reality is chaotic, and then we have the process of simplifying and the reason why we are telling
Mm,
stories.
mm, mm,
But for me, I think there is this, that somehow we need both.
mm,
Uh, we need a direction.
mm,
We need something we want to explore,
mm, mm.
because else you will have some of those films that your editor will hate you because the director hasn't really found out what they really want.
Ah,
So it is both a kind of a journey
yes.
of exploration, but if you haven't decided, am I
Mm,
going to the North Pole or am
mm.
I going to South America? Then it just became then
No, no, I agree.
so, and it is also, and that is one of the good thing I think with the experience. It
Mm,
is this that I also learn a little bit when to use what. Like I say, my first viewing there, I have to be sucked in the material. I have to trust my emotional
mm,
experience
mm,
and speak it out loud. After that, now we go to the head.
mm, mm,
So a little bit, when are you working with your stomach or your heart or your balls, wherever
mm, mm,
the emotions are sitting, and when are you working with the head? That because I've been through the process so many times, I know a little bit. It's a big security for me that I know the process, so I I I, I know in the beginning when I was younger, I was so scared of being in this chaos.
mm.
But then but this now I can lean back and I say, yeah, I don't know really how this film is going to be, but I find it interesting and I love the characters. So I think this will be a great film because it had happened before that I have been here, where a younger director, they are spending a lot of time on fear. There's a lot
Mm.
of fear in the film business on all levels. There is, which, and fear is not creative. It
No.
is the contrary. But there is fear from the producers, there are fears from the
Mm.
financiers, there are fear from the different filmmakers, and and it's
Yeah,
often
no, no, it's true. No, it's
it creates so much fuss and then we are clinging to some formats or something, or you know you
no,
know,
no, it's true. It's true. It's true.
and often the first draft is a half-born baby. And
Mm.
then, also that a lot of times, then one of the first you invite in, it is the producers. And if they are unexperienced, then they panic and then they come, now
Mm.
you have to do so and so and so, and create more mess, you know.
No, no, no.
Instead,
No,
all
it's
those
true.
kind of.
No, Niels, what I like about what you said is that, and that's why I really, really liked also the content of the book. It's because you balance that well, it seems to me. Because
Mhm,
you talk about going with your emotions, right?
mm,
And you listen to your emotion, read the subtext, not just go with the three act structure.
mm.
But at the same time, there is another part in the book where you actually go and say, if it's okay for the director to not know, that's a one thing. But it's also true that if you can tell the difference between that director and the director that he's just filming a bunch of stuff, but he doesn't really know which direction it's going. And
Mhm.
to put it in a practice way, like I would like to know what you think. It seems to me that you do need to have a directions you're going, right? I'm gonna go explore, but then once that is established, give yourself the freedom to do that
Mhm.
because there are no rules. Like it's your gut, is your all the experience you accumulated in your life, is your sixth sense. Like it's all of that goes into it. But then if you apply that to most random situation, well, maybe it's a little bit more problematic. Would you say that?
I'm not sure I fully understood the question.
Like when we go, no, I don't think it's a question. I would like to know if it's almost like a rephrase of what you said, right? Because sometimes directors film a bunch of stuff thinking that that's artistic and they have to go with their feelings only, right? Where
Yeah.
they don't need to have a direction.
Mm.
While, as you're saying, well, you need a little bit of both. You need balance
Exactly.
between these two and you need to know how to do it. Well, it seems to me that, at least for me, after I read the book, is like, okay, it seems to me that yes, I do need to have a direction,
Of course.
but I don't need to have all the answer. And I am free after I take that direction to explore. But I'm going in that world, in this direction, with this, with this specific situation. And then when you are in that, you are free to explore, even if it's scary, but go and explore that part. Instead of just, I don't know,
Mm.
going left or right with no directions. Like you can
Exactly.
bring a lot of emotions, but they will not make sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and then you're not. I think there is always some basic choices you as a director have to make
Mm,
from the development phase in the shooting, meeting with the characters and the situations. You
mm,
both have to be in the chaos, but also kind of okay, predict what might happen. They can go this direction, that direction. Maybe
mm,
sometimes you need to push them a little in that direction
mm-hmm,
and see what's happened.
mm,
So, out of the knowledge of who your character is, what could happen, and so on. No, absolutely. And these kind of film where you are just filming and filming and filming, and you know, uh, I would say nowadays I'm so old, so I started with film, and
mm,
there were 20 minutes in the reel. Then you had to change cassette into 10
mm,
minutes, so you were thinking much more what you wanted before you
mm,
were filming because it was more complicated. And it's not only Joshua. Nowadays, these hundreds of hours of just material where the directors a lot of time has postponed
mm,
decisions.
mm.
And and then they often come to me and they want me to watch, I don't know, 1,200 hours material. It will take us, 1 year just to watch, and I will have forgotten what I
What
watched in
is?
the
Yeah.
beginning. So I always, with the shoes material, I always say to the directors, you should make select.
Mm,
So, and then they are kind of saying, but what if there is something that you find is fantastic? And I say, but I can't. I need to know what you find interesting,
mm,
and then log your material very well. So if we are discussing something,
yeah.
then I can say, but don't we have blah, blah, blah. Then of course, we can go back in the material
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and look for that. And of course, I was telling beforehand of the act of killing where I got 35 hours edited scene. of course, we went back in the original material out of the discussion, but
Mm.
Joshua knew his material
Mm.
very well. And then I would say almost all the scenes were also re-edited when it had found its place in the film, because a scene is different if it's in the beginning or in the middle or in the
Oh
end
yeah.
of
Oh
a
yeah.
film. And what is the focus? What is this scene going to tell? Here, it's something different than the placement. So but it was a way that to overview the material for us as a starting point.
And talking about the your approach in the beginning was different because you didn't have, it wasn't digital. So before cutting something, you had to think 10
Yeah,
times before, because when you cut it, then it's a way longer process. But that forces you to think, right? That forces you to think about why you're doing it and all of that, without just saying, like you say in the books, now the students sometimes they cut 10 different version of it just because they
yeah,
can. It's so easy, right?
yeah,
Uh, and I think what was also really surprising to me, it was what is the three rooms of Melancholia?
yeah,
The right?
yeah,
Is that the right
yeah.
title? Okay.
Peer script. Yeah.
Yeah. It was stunning to me, both the process and the way you edit it, but it also was stunning to me the amount of hours that she will have. Like it was like, it's not like 6 to 1 or something like that,
Uh,
right?
yeah.
Like, but then even with that, like, I have so much respect for that. Like, I'm like, man, I wish I could talk with that person, because
Oh,
like, to film 6 to 1, it's like, it's unbelievable. But then when I saw the documentary, I'm like,
oh,
this is amazing.
oh,
Like, like the woman that has to hand
oh,
over the three kids to the
oh,
to
oh,
the lady that's gonna, oh man, that was
oh,
like, it was just like brutal in a good way. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh,
that intention to see that somebody films 6 to 1 and then brings that result. I'm like,
oh.
well, we probably all need to learn in this digital age to do a little bit more of that.
Yeah, yeah, but I would also say here is I have been very fortunate that I have met directors after some decades that have were yeah turned everything upside down that I knew about filmmaking,
Uh,
and have revitalized me, because that is often also a problem with age. That okay, we have understood something, we have found something that
uh,
work, we have developed that, and then we are continuing with that. But where I have had some filmmakers, and Pierre is absolutely one of them, and Joshua is another, that have
mm,
made upside down and have revitalized me, and where brought me to another place
mm,
where what the only thing I can say to my reward or whatever it's called, it is that I'm curious and I'm not so afraid in my character.
mm,
So okay, I when I started with Pierre, I knew her former film and I could see she has something unique, but how to do it, I didn't really understood. So, but let's see, let's see how. But this is
Niels,
interesting. Let's see how it goes.
but Niels,
Hmm,
it sounds like, from the book, it sounds like it was kind of like an interesting experience the way you guys edited that.
totally, totally. And I
Like,
was, in fact, I was using the same method with another. It was a fiction film with an old Swedish master who was uh, normally also editing his film himself. He was also a DOP himself, like Pierre, so these kind of control freak. And then the producer, who was a friend of mine, and his wife thought, ah, he's getting old, and it would be good with the editor.
Mm.
And then we met, and I was kind of course, it should be the director that want me, not the director's wife. So we were very open, but then I was telling about this process
Ah.
with Pierre, and I said, of course, if we are going to work together, it should be something where you, Jan, is feeling safe.
Mm.
So what about this? And he's a fantastic director, but he's not verbal in a way. He's so I remember then I was asking, yeah, should we watch Rushes together?
Mm.
You just watch it in Copenhagen and so on. I was saying because I wanted to make his film.
Mm.
And and then we decided that we should start our process, both of us editing the same scene.
Okay.
But what I had done just before I started editing, I had been watching all his fiction film. I
Mm.
think 20 fiction film. So I had, what should I say? Not, I had his tone
Mm.
with him. And then it was in the cinema, and I think both of us was a little nervous because we liked each other, but was this the right combination? And what was so interesting, it was that our cut, the way we had been looking, and the kind of when we were where and so on, was almost identical.
No,
Yes. And that made us both relax and say, yes, that we
we
can
can
do
do
that,
this.
you know, because I had somehow felt him
Mm.
the way he was. Yeah.
And
So,
I think as an editor, I notice also like in you, like a deep generosity and honesty in the way that you work, meaning that you're not trying to do your way. You're not trying to look and put yourself on the pedestal and say, look how clever I am. And, I'm going to revolutionize, right? Like you position yourself there to help the vision of even just the fact that you decided to go and watch the 20 movies,
uh,
right? To
uh,
keep that, it means that you're thinking, how can I help him to have
yeah.
his vision to become reality? And I'm here to serve that. But in the way you also did that. I'm not here just to sing your praises. I'm just saying all of this because I hope that, like, first I'm learning a lot from it. And I think we should all have a little bit more of that. Like, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable when I say these things. I'm just
No, no,
saying
no,
it.
no.
Yeah, I'm just saying it because all that is part of being really honest with the skills that we are developing as a filmmaker, as editors, or whatever. And man,
In all filmmaking,
hmm,
it is that artistic, I think the humbleness. It is not this, it is what we create that is important.
hmm,
It is not necessary the 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 person, and of course in modern art there the person is
hmm,
as important as the piece in a way. But of course I have a little correction. Of course I'm making the director's vision and their film.
hmm,
But of course, I'm also challenged because I also is representing the audience, not
hmm,
so I'm not discussing their vision. If I'm disagreeing in the vision, then I shouldn't take the
Yeah,
job.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
But what we are discussing and where I'm challenging, it is how are we communicating
yeah.
that vision so our audience understand it.
That shows me the honesty, Niels, that you have with the audience too.
Yeah.
That's why it goes back to honesty to me,
So
because
so I feel my job is a kind of I'm bridging, I would say, a director's vision and personality, because it's also what should I say? Uh, it's not only what we articulate as person; it's also how I read them as
Mhm.
human being. It's
Yeah,
them. It's
yeah,
them. They
yeah.
are funny or they like this kind of thing, and the material. What have they actually brought home? Not only what, and then they can have, and a lot of directors have tons of words, what they want and blah, blah, blah. But maybe it's not, have
Uh,
never manifested in the material. It's not
mm,
communicated out. And then, of course, I have to be tough and
mm,
say, sorry, I don't see it, and I'm sure audience doesn't. How can we do that
mm,
so we, in another way than you thought it could be provided, can communicate what you want to tell to an audience? So, I would say, and that I can see with editing students, it is in the cooperation with the director. It that is the hardest part because you both have to be loyal and challenging at the same time. And how do
yes.
you
Do
find
you
that
balance?
balance? How do you balance both being loyal and challenging?
Mm,
What is, and there, when you're younger and more like I was, more insecure of myself, then to finding that balance.
mm. Uh, I'm curious to hear, like, talking about you being young. I'm curious to see, like, like you hang around students and students that potentially wants to become either an editor or a director. Um, this could take another hour. I don't want to take it too much of your time, but I'm curious to know what's your perception of, like, the young generation, especially with the effect of social media towards their approach to filmmaking. Do you see any connections there? Like, I'm talking about potentially, even the fast pace and, the distraction that there is, how that affects the experience of watching something and even the experience of editing something. I mean, we're talking about social media where, the expert comes and they say you should deliver your hook in 2 seconds. And then, you spend an hour of watching that kind of content where in 15 seconds,
I think that there will be developed, and maybe already is developed, a kind of new art form in social media
mm,
that I'm just too old to understand.
mm,
And that is the future generation that will understand that. Like in
mm,
my youth, our parents didn't understand rock music, you know.
mm.
Or, so, but what is interesting, it is in the time of social media,
Ah.
there, and now I'm a member of European Film Academy and so on. And these days, I'm even watching fiction.
Mm,
In fact, the tempo had gone down
mm,
in fiction film. When I
mm,
was young, a film couldn't be more than 90 minutes, a fiction film. And there were all kind of scientists that was kind of saying, but it's to kind of prove that thing. It's the human nature, all these kind of
mm,
things.
mm, mm.
nowadays there is, I can see all the fiction film is around 2 hours, 2 hours, and so
Oh.
on. The tempo had gone down.
Oh wow.
So it is, of course, action films have these kind of bang, 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 but other films, the tempo, and I think it's also that a reaction towards the social media. It's also one of the
Ah.
reasons why I think that documentary film had become
Hmm.
more popular than ever. It is because television are not showing anything of the reality
Hmm.
anymore. It's game show or
Yeah,
reality
yeah,
show,
yeah, yeah,
news,
yeah.
sport, flow television is that. And and that makes a space, not for everybody, but
Hmm.
make a space that some people want to see some of the reality. They
Hmm.
want to get informed and so on.
Oh,
So
that's really encouraging, Niels.
so yeah, and that is, I think that is maybe that creates space. I
Huh.
remember around my book, I was invited to be a key speaker at a conference in US of film school teacher from all US. And then I was spending some days there, and then another, there was a discussion and so on. And then there was, in fact, and that made a big impression on me. It was a kind of research or kind of that Americans
Hmm.
are thinking that documentary films have bigger credibility
Hmm.
and factual truths than the news.
Ah, I can see that, actually.
Of course, when we are watching Fox News, then
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah, yeah, yeah,
understand
yeah.
that. And that's kind of shift. We
Oh
want
wow.
also to relate to the reality, learn something, and not and because we all are living in spending so much time in this, what should I say, cyber reality.
No, 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 it's
There,
true. But you know that.
there is a bigger, there is a bigger. I think one of the emotion in our time it is there is a huge longing for authenticity. That and what is one of the most popular things on social media? It's cat video. It is things that where something is happening, or baby videos, or people who
Mm,
falls, or where it's not something that is performed, because I think we human beings knows the different, and we are just longing for
for that.
something authentic instead
Authentic.
of ha 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 ha, I'm happy, all that kind of thing. Because okay, we can look at it and we can see it as funny or crazy or whatever or
Hmm.
so on. But I think also, and that makes us a beautiful circle back to the authentic moment where we
Hmm.
started. I think there is a longing in our time, and that gives documentary film
Hmm.
a place there. Because there is a need. It's not only us as a filmmaker
Yeah, it's
that
true.
have the need. It's also a big part of our audience.
Yeah, when you go back to universal themes,
Yeah.
and that touches anybody, and the more is not attached to the historical moments, but it goes beyond, the historical times. It goes like to the deeper needs that we have as human beings. Then it speaks to anybody in time and in age. Niels, I could talk with you for days. Like we,
Yeah.
Like I could talk with you for, like I feel like this is true for, pretty much every guest that I invite on the podcast. Niels, thank you so much. Like I don't
Thank
I
you.
don't think like I can express this enough. Like seriously.
You have
Oh,
you
oh
have
Niels, and also thank you for writing the book. I don't take that for granted. I don't take that
no
for
no,
granted.
and but that it wasn't easy because I'm not a writer,
Mm,
but I learned a lot by
mm,
writing it because it was I got some artistic research, so I got some money to sit down,
mm,
and it was a huge privilege and to think what the fuck have I been doing for more than 40 years? Is there a kind of story?
mm,
Is there a connection? Is there something? So that was a big privilege in that way, because often when we are working on a film, we are in the
mm,
middle of it. So
yeah.
this that I had time to helicopter
Mm,
myself up and look at my professional life, and had time to reflect, and I had to put some words down. And of course, it ended in this kind of strange mix in between artistic biography and a teaching book, and like other like the film directors, they want, as I always say, they want to put the whole world into one single film and have 10 stories. And of course, my book had some of the same problems. But uh,
no,
but
Niels.
thank you so much.
No, I really, really, really appreciate it. And yeah, seriously, Niels, if you come, let me know. I really want to
I
take. I
will.
really want to take you out for dinner.
That sounds great.
All right. Hey,
Have a good afternoon.
you too. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll let you know when everything is gonna come out. Guys, I hope that this episode was helpful for you. I would suggest, if you want to do yourself a favor, go and buy Neil's book. Ordering Chaos is the title. I don't get any money for saying this. I really believe that this is going to change the way you edit. And so I think you should really buy this book. Not only the way you edit, I think it will help you just to understand certain dynamics of storytelling that are not really explained in other books. Most books explain the three act structure, how do you apply that in documentary, blah 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 blah, which is all good. Is all good. It's not bad. But what Niels has to say is very unique. Are things that I have been perceiving as I've been producing documentaries. I was never able to explain it. I would have never been able to put it like that. And when I read the book, I realized, oh man, so I'm not crazy. So these things actually are really good points. I can leverage those points and I can really enhance my documentary in the way it's told. So do yourself a favor, go buy that book. Also, I remind you that if you have any specific questions towards documentary production, we have a specific section at the bottom of howwefilm.com website. You can ask me any questions regarding documentary production. I'll do my best to give you the answer. But also, if you would like to know how Niels boiled down 1,200 hours in 2-hour film, well, we have a specific episode on the exclusive content page on the website. You just need to register. It's for free. You don't need to pay anything, and you'll be able to go more practical into what are the things you should do in order to bring order to the chaos of having a lot of hours of footage. Guys, I love you. I hope this serves you well. If not, just let me know. I'll do my best, and I'll see you in the next episode.